G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. We'll have all the show notes and any resources mentioned in the cast on our website. In 2011, aged 28 and with a 3-year-old, started a podiatry product business with their business partner while they were both still working in their clinics. On Shark Tank 4 years later, they landed esteemed business person Andrew Banks as an investor and mentor. In 2017, with sales still not cracking $100,000 per annum, her partner exited, and Rachael totally transformed herself and the business. First year on her own, grew sales 300%, then 170%, and when COVID hit, this slowed to 60 to 70% per annum. Began with 2 FTE, the business partners, now has 3, including herself. Funded with their savings and some investor loans to fund the transformation, which she repaid in 3 months. Overhauled packaging and expanded from 1 product to now 16. Felt she had succeeded when, within 6 months of taking full control, got into the biggest chemist chain in Australia, Chemist Warehouse. Hardest thing about growing a small business is resilience. And what she would tell herself on day one of starting out is, buckle up and prepare for the ride of your life. It's going to be tricky, super hard, and be resilient. Go back to episode 18 and hear how Faden and his business partner started a tech recruitment firm right after the tech wreck and grew to 90 FTE in 4 countries and why he wouldn't go into his industry now. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Rachael Ferguson from SynxBody. Thanks for your time today, Rachael.
Thanks, Troy, for having me.
Let's start with how we know each other. Again, this one's an easy one. Peter, who edits the podcast, he reached out to yourself and asked you to come on the show.
Yeah, he did. And I think it's great because I love talking about business and I love listening on the other end as well, listening to different podcasts about business. It's really informative. Yeah,
me too. I've got a lot on my podcast player. Mm-hmm. Well, tell the audience a bit about your business, where it's located, what it does and how it makes money.
Sure. So a little bit of background. I'm actually a podiatrist. Mm-hmm. And 10 years ago, I decided to start 2 businesses in 1 year.
Right.
So one was a podiatry clinic, which we won't talk much about.
Yeah.
And the second business with my best friend, Marie Lewis, we decided we wanted to make insoles. So being a podiatrist, we just found that in our clinics, we couldn't find the products that we wanted for our customers or patients. And we wanted to make something better that fitted into a wider range of shoes, because a lot of them are bulky. And I don't know if you've ever worn insoles before, Troy, but
I've got some on right now.
Do you?
In my Ugg boots, actually.
Oh, there you go. Good. See?
I've got a high arch on my right foot, which my dad had about the same age I got it as well. Yeah.
Wow. So there's a lot of people that have foot issues and we just wanted to try and find some way to solve that problem. So we decided we were going to venture out on our own and we created SynxSole, which is one of our products. And that was about 10 years ago. We went on that journey for about 5 years on our own. And that's kind of where we, sort of where we started. We even went on Shark Tank, the TV show Shark Tank.
Yes, I love that.
In 2015.
Yeah,
it's
so
good.
You went on in 2015?
Yes.
Yep.
2015, we went on there and we got an investment from Andrew Banks, who's still with me today.
Great. He's ex-Morgan and Banks, the big recruiting firm in the 80s. Yeah, lovely bloke too from the sounds of it.
He's really nice. We've actually become good friends and he's been a great mentor for me. Yep. So that's kind of how we started, and the business has evolved a lot over the last 3 years, and I'll talk about that as we go. But essentially, we're a foot care company that make foot care products. We sell into pharmacy, and that's how we make our money. And I use a lot of my podiatry experience to help design different products and bring out to the market things that I think my patients need.
Yeah, great. And where's manufacturing here in Australia or overseas?
Okay, no. So we manufacture in China mainly. We do have some other outlets that we're looking into, especially one product coming out in Australia. But I'm actually based in WA as the CEO of the company, but we actually warehouse and distribute out of Sydney.
Great. Yeah.
And a lot easier.
Yes. And on starting out, how old were you when you started Synx?
So I was actually 28.
Wow.
28 and I had a 3-year-old daughter. So looking back on that time, it wasn't an easy journey. And I think that's why it's great to talk about because there's so many struggles in between.
Yeah.
And a lot of time with business, people think you start a business, so that's great. But, you got to have resilience because it's just not as easy as you think.
No, exactly. I just said this on a cast I just recorded with Tina Towers. that I often tell people when they approach me about coaching, mentoring them, is that the first thing I need to fix is small business is fucking hard. It's it's not as easy as what people think.
100% agree.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's not, and if it was, everyone would do it, right?
That's right. It's a lot of fun, but it's just a lot harder than what people think from looking on the outside. Yeah.
Definitely.
And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, so for the first probably 7, I would say, like probably six and a half years of the business, it was a struggle. Like we didn't even turn over, the other side of 100 grand. Like it was literally in the trenches, not getting paid. We were, both myself and my business partner were traveling away from our families all the time to China and different parts of Australia, even New Zealand. Would have to leave our kids, as I said, not get paid, also try and run our clinics. And that was a struggle because I was using one wage to pay myself whilst my interest was in another company. And that's never a good thing either. So that 7 years was definitely a hard slog. But over the last 3.5 years since I've turned it around, we've seen huge growth. So in the first year since, I'll talk about a lot of the things that I changed, we managed to see 300% growth in 1 year.
Right.
And then after that, we pretty much saw 170%.
Yep.
The following year, and then we were on track to do about the same this year before COVID times.
Before COVID.
Yeah, before COVID. So, that really dramatically reduced our growth, but we still finished on about 70% growth. So
that's great. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And what about team member size, FTE from day one for this business to now?
Yeah. So in the original stages, it was myself and my business partner, and we did everything ourselves. We learned everything ourselves, and that's sort of really like part of my biggest key to success, I feel, is learning every single role in my company and knowing the ins and outs. Even I'm talking advertising. Obviously I can't do design, but I learned as much as I could, even in doing little bits of digital design, just so I understood how my business operated. And then I started to outsource. So I really only have probably 2 main employees, but I use a lot of contractors and teams that I work with over Australia. I've had different teams in over the world as well. So in America, in the UK, and also in different parts of Spain.
Yeah. So with your business partner and yourself, and the other 2, about 4 FTE at the moment plus.
Well, my business partner left about 3.5, 4 years ago. She exited the business. So since then, I've pretty much ran it with the other 2 employees that I have. Yep. And obviously I have my shareholders as well, who are like advisors, and my contractors who I use. Yeah,
great. When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
So that would have been about 3 years ago. We really hit some hard struggles up until that point. So myself and my business partner, had to reach a decision on the company wasn't going as far as it could. And we had to make some decisions around that. And that was probably the most difficult year of my business. And that was 2017. I had to really look at, like, what am I doing? Why is this not working? How am I going to fix this? And it took a good, probably best part of that year to figure that out. So, and there was a lot of soul searching, a lot of going back to, my roots of, what has been missing. Like, I'm not working on my mindset. I'm not in a good routine. Like, how am I going to get this? How am I going to see my vision if I don't even spend time on myself? So I really went back to that whole, reading a lot of books, spending time on myself. And I'm sure you probably would have heard this speaking to a lot of other successful business people, that it really stems back to yourself first. Like, really spend that time on, getting clear on your health, your wellness, a good morning routine, structuring your day, and just being really strict with those things. And I did that. And literally within 6 months, I had turned my business around, and I managed to get into the biggest retailer in Australia, which is Chemist Warehouse for us.
Congratulations.
And that was the defining moment. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was 3 years ago. And that was the key moment that my business became successful.
And so all of that investment in yourself and those massive changes, was that was just after your business partner exited?
Yes. Yep. So she exited in 2017. And, following that 8 months after that, we really just focused on, where's the business going? Like, why hasn't it been successful? What can I do here to make it successful?
Yep. And what year did Andrew Banks invest?
2015. So he was just 2 years prior to that. So even then it was frustrating. It's like, we've been on TV, we've got an investment from the Sharks. Like, why is our business not working? But there was some key things that we were doing wrong. And it took me a while to figure that out. Yeah. And one of them was, we were just one product on the shelf. So, and our packaging was really dark. It was black.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to kind of go, hang on a second, you know, against our biggest competitors, which is Shoal. I'm sure you've heard of Shoal.
Yes, I think I'm wearing them now.
Yeah, I need to convert you. I need to convert you to SynxBody. So I took time even walking into stores and watching what people were doing. And a lot of them were like, dark packaging is really lost. It looked great. Like we were really trying to be modern and trendy with our branding. But when it was actually next to these bright, colorful packages, it was just lost. And because they had a range of products, we only had one insole and one product on the shelf. So I pretty much, to get to this position, I went to the shareholders and said, this is my plan. Like I want to grow another 3 brands. I want to introduce probably about another 15 products to the range. These are the products that I want. This is what I'm going to do. I've assessed the market. I know where I'm at. I want to leave my clinic for at least 12 months. And I just want to focus solely on this business.
Wow, that's a great decision. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was risky, right? It was really risky because I was risking everything at that point. I was risking my clinic. I was risking the other business. And I went to them and said, obviously having Andrew Banks as a mentor and an investor, I want to borrow X amount of dollars. This is how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to pay you back in 6 months.
Yep.
And he agreed. He was like, I love your ideas. I've always believed in you. Yep, let's do it. So we did it. And I paid them all back within 3 months. Wow. And from then on, we've been debt free. So that was a turning point.
That's great. And just going back to the products, one of the old traditional 4 Ps is product, and another one is packaging. So I never used to value that and understand it. And I was literally yesterday trying to open something, this package, and I was going, for fuck's sake, I'm going to buy a different brand. This just shits me.
It's mental, isn't it? Like if you cannot open something, especially those plastic, like completely sealed, you've got to get the scissors out.
And then you cut yourself because it's that hard plastic. Oh my God. Yeah. Packaging is really key. And so studying your competitors. And also a lot of people will do, just observations. I watch customers in the store and how they oscillate between this package, pick one up, put it back down. So that's really important. But the other one is the product that you mentioned, not just a quality product, but the product range. If you've only got one product on the shelf, you're not as attractive to the retailers and also the consumers to, have a bit of choice from. So that was a really smart move.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it added incremental value because all of a sudden now our customers are ordering, 15 different lines from us in all these different sizes. So all of a sudden our orders went from like this to this. Which is great.
Yeah, well, I'll go into Chemist Warehouse and see if you got support for a high arch on a right foot.
Yeah, no, funny enough, like from a podiatry point of view, we're very much based around neutral insoles. So, and when I say that, it's lower arch height, even for people with high arches, but that's more my background. Like I'm a sports podiatrist, so I deal a lot with injuries. I do lots of dry needling and acupuncture. And what we used to find was people who had high arches actually needed support on the other side of their foot because often they would end up with things like outside knee pain, hip pain, and different places if orthotics are too high. So our orthotic is actually the way that it's designed. And we have a patent on this design, by the way. We've got an international patent. It's super slim. So the guts of it's kind of been cut away and you can actually have support on the outside as well as the inside of your foot. So it's quite unique and different and it's suitable, for most foot types.
Great. I'm going to buy a pair and check them out. And what does success look like to you?
Do you know, this is a tricky one. So, back then when I reached success, it's like, okay, great. We're successful. That's fantastic. But what does that mean? And for me, it's an ever evolving door. Like your ball points change all the time, like what success looks like. So I'm really big on goal setting. So every year I, get my vision board and I set up the things that I want to do and I really nut out. And I think the key between having a vision board and actually getting stuff done is actually having a plan, right? So knowing this is my goals, what steps am I going to take to achieve these things, these things, these things. And in situations that we're dealing with now, you have to do it more often than ever before. So instead of once or twice a year, I'm doing it every month. So we're pivoting, we're changing. And for me, like that is so important. So I'll never see success as one defined moment. It's growing and changing and developing and learning. And I just think anybody who thinks they have all the answers early on,
it's full of shit.
Absolutely. Put it bluntly, full of shit. And also they'll come up to some problem at some point in their life because I truly believe that a lot of my failures and mistakes is helped to shape me as a successful business person.
Yeah. And just on the changing your focus and the strategy monthly, you're going through phenomenal fast growth. Most companies I work with, are between 10 to 30% per annum growth. And my advice, we look at it, we have a quarterly focus. But anything higher than that, which is where you guys are at, definitely monthly, because things change so fast. You may have to pivot one corner.
Yep. Definitely. And that's, it's so, I guess it's good and it's bad because you're continually thinking, yep, this is where we're heading. And then, things might have just changed slightly. But I think we just have to in this climate.
Yeah, definitely. What's the number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Marketing. The number one thing I've found to get into, do you mean like marketing what we've used in to make us successful? Is that what you mean? Yeah. Like a tool or?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. If someone came to you and said, I'm looking at growing this business and fast, what should what's the one thing I should focus on in marketing? What's your advice?
In marketing?
Yeah.
So you've got to be there in the digital space. Yeah. Absolutely. And the thing that I find is you've got to be watching that. It's got to be measurable results because for us, part of our campaign, we went into Chemist Warehouse was doing a TV commercial. And a lot of people said to me, that's a waste. Like, people aren't watching TV anymore. Like, I just don't know that you should be doing that. And that was actually hugely successful for us. And it still is. So we're just about to shoot our second TV commercial now. And so my advice is always that it's got to be measurable. You've got to test it slowly. But absolutely in that digital space, whether it's TV or whether it's social media, you have to have a presence.
Yeah, totally agree in that testing. James McGregor, who I had on the cast early on, I think episode 3 or 4, Biteable, 7 or 8 million customers now here in Hobart, for customers around the world. But that's one of the things I learnt from James is just test, keep what's working. And I remember hearing a story years ago. My ex-wife's best friend, I was talking to her husband, who was a builder, and he had a business in Melbourne, where they're building gazebos or pergolas. And they had the colour bond rights to use that for the roof, and they were just going gangbusters. They had, they're about to open in Sydney, and I asked, how do you market? You guys have just grown so fast. And he said, well, I'll leave that up to my business partner. He's not, a builder. We partnered up a few years ago, and he went through a couple of marketing managers, and the one we've got now, he just pretty much comes in, puts his feet up on the table, reads the newspaper most of the day, because he tested and found what really worked for them. And I was surprised what he told me. They used to have an actual constructed gazebo in a shopping mall and try and, talk to people about the product. But this marketing manager tested it, measured it, saw it wasn't really getting the traction they needed, compared that against other things like printed ads, etc. This is well before digital was big. And just kept trying things, and one of the tests was he removed the physical product from the shopping mall and just put a big fuck off banner up, colour banner showing a printed gazebo and the right copy on the banner as well. And he just paid a uni student every week to move that from one shopping mall to another, and that just brought them the most leads. And whoever would have thought that was it for them? Yeah.
I know. That's 100%. I would have said straight away the physical gazebo in the shop. That would be the best one.
Yeah.
Yep. You just don't know. So, and look, I would have thought, like, I've done a lot of advertising with different TV stations, and we went on the morning show and we did lots of different things. And I would have thought, surely that would give us better ratings than a commercial running on, say, Channel 10, for example. But no, the actual commercial on Channel 10 was something that's given us a bigger return. So I guess it depends as well where your demographic is.
Yes.
And with Channel 10 being a younger audience, that's kind of where we're seated. So that's why it's working. So yeah, 100% agree. You've just got to keep testing things, because the amount of money that we have wasted on marketing and things that haven't worked. We've done billboards, we've done, different campaigns, radio campaigns that haven't worked. But you've got to just test small, keep moving, keep pivoting when something doesn't work.
Yeah, totally agree. Do you use a Net Promoter Score at all?
No, don't use that one, but we do use a couple of apps on our website. One of them's called Stamped. I don't know if you know about Stamped.
No.
Stamped? Yep, the reviews. And so it kind of sends out, so when people are on your website and they've purchased a product, it will send them out something to prompt them to review your product, to give you any feedback and advice. And also in the checkout experience, it kind of tracks them around and gives, are you having any issues? Did you have any problems today? So we love that, because we find we get so many customers respond and just give us tips and advice, which is, and I think it's so important for me. Customer service is what our company is built on. So knowing that you're delivering what the customer needs, or you're responding to something that they haven't found helpful, is so important to me.
Yep, great.
Yeah.
I'll email you an article, I'll email you a blog post I wrote on Net Promoter Score. It's just one question.
It's MailChimp. It's through MailChimp, isn't it?
No, it's Bain & Co., the big American consulting company in the 80s or 90s, I think, created this. You'll hear it in a lot of companies you call big and small. Telstra, Amex, Apple use it. It's just one question. How likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague between 0 and 10? So it's an 11-point scale. There's a heap of research and data behind why this one question works, but I'll shoot that through to you. You might want to have
that'd be great.
read on it and maybe fit it in there somewhere. Let's talk about funding your growth of your business. So before you went on Shark Tank and Andrew Banks became an investor, tell us a bit about how you funded the growth.
Yeah, so we basically bootstrapped. So we did it all ourselves, between myself and my business partner. Cash, loans, whatever we had, we did it. And we did that right up until when Andrew came in.
Yep.
So that was a good 5 years. And it was hard, right? Because we did a lot of intellectual property. So looking back, there's probably things we could have done differently, but we spent a lot of money. So we did international trademarks, we did international patents in all the different countries. We only followed through in the US and Europe in design patents, and Australia, because at the end of the day, you have to kind of refine where you're spending the money. But we did a lot of that ourselves. And I do think it was important because it is what helped us get the deal on Shark Tank. So that was good. Then from that point, obviously Andrew invested in the business, and that enabled us to then pay down a bit of the debt that we had. And then we sort of started from scratch again. And then obviously, having Andrew as a business partner is got some huge benefits because, rather than going to a bank, which is tricky for a lot of the time, I am in a position where I can ask and lend money from him and the other shareholders.
Yep.
But, fortunately, we haven't had to do that. Lately we're just, even in COVID times, we're managing to, have plenty of cash in the bank and pay for everything that we need and keep our business running the way that we have done, which is good.
Great. So how many investors have you got now out of interest?
So myself as a shareholder, then Andrew, and then we have some people who bought out my business partner. So, and they're still in it, and she still has a minor shareholding too, which is great for her. Yeah,
great. And those early loans, was that bank loans or from?
Some was ourselves. So we put in our own money, and then some was the bank loans. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Any government grants or?
Yeah, since we have. So I do the export grant now,
MDG.
Which is MDG, which is fantastic. So we've just done our second year of that.
R&D grant as well.
And obviously because I think that research and development one, yes, I think, we have done that as well. And because we're traveling to the US, and obviously before COVID happened, we were just about to break into the US properly. Like I traveled there last year, we've set up quite a few deals. We've already started with a warehouse out of Florida. So we ship products direct to customers over there. So that is going to be a huge focus for us once COVID settles again. Yeah.
Have you seen the federal government export loan scheme?
Yes, I have. Yep. So you can actually, as long as you've got purchase orders, you can loan money to do that, which is fantastic. There's huge opportunities.
Yeah, I think the government's very supportive, particularly in export. Have you guys used that loan scheme?
No, we haven't needed to. So fortunately, we're in a position where we've been able to fund it ourselves, but it's certainly been on the radar, because if we had some of these huge deals that we're talking to, like CVS and huge pharmacies, then obviously we will probably need something like that in place.
And if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
This is an interesting question. Do you know, I love what I do. I wake up every single day, and it's so true what they say, love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Yes. I'm so passionate about health, about podiatry, about keeping people moving and on their feet, that for me, absolutely 100% would go into this industry. If there was someone like myself already in this space, doing what we were doing, I would be hesitant. And I guess it's just one of the things that I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this is that we've had a really hard slog trying to educate our products, because it's more medical. So when you're talking health and beauty, social media, a lot of these products will move faster. So there has been times when I've looked at different things and went, oh my goodness, had we, got into the beauty industry, we would have been killing it by now on Instagram and, different things like that. But for me, it's not about that kind of growth. It's about, waking up and loving what you do every single day.
Yeah, that's right. I used to be the same. You used to want to, build a lot of wealth and be the biggest this business or that business, but it's really, for me these days, it's about balance, flexibility, lifestyle. Time's more important to me than
100%. Yep. And mental. You got to be in the game mentally, I think.
Yep. And can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so the audience can learn from it?
Yeah. 2017. It was the hardest year of my life.
It sounds like a lot of change.
Yeah, it was a lot of change, and it was probably my biggest growth year. So when I look back on that year, I don't look at it as, oh my God, it was a terrible year. I look at it as it was the year that I grew and sort of came into myself. And it took all of that, all of those prior years, the mistakes, the, not being successful, the banging my head against a wall, like, why are we doing this? I'm not getting paid a wage. And it is so hard, when you're in that time to see a way out. But what I learned was that, in all that struggle of, at that point, I had 2 children, I was running another business, the person who was lacking was myself. I wasn't investing in me. I wasn't eating as well as I should have been. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't meditating. I didn't have a set routine. I wasn't reading anymore. I used to think, I don't have time to read. I've got to work. I was staying up till 1, 2 in the morning. Then I had a toddler that was waking me up. He still wakes me up at 6. But, that's the reality of where I was at. I was tired, burnt out. Like I said, had a partnership that just wasn't working for the both of us. And that was a struggle. Like, obviously for both of us, that was a hard year coming out of that. But going through those processes and, going back to myself and working on myself first made everything else, made me make the right decisions as I went forward.
This sounds exactly what Tina Tower, who I just interviewed a few minutes ago, said exactly the same thing when she exited her franchises or franchising business. She went through dramatic transformation of her own health, but also just attitude and mindset towards things, and it just made the world of difference. So very, very similar.
Massive. Yeah, massive. And the thing is, since I obviously did a lot of reading around that time, that's why I ended up doing this, because I kept reading about all successful people and their point of where they were failing to when they became successful. And it all came back to these key things.
Yeah, great. That inflection point. Yeah. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most at the greatest value?
What have I had to work on the most? It's a tricky one. I would say probably getting the marketing, like the branding right. That has been a changing process. We've even just relaunched all our branding to SynxBody because we were SynxSoul, which was one product, and it didn't align anymore with our whole brand and vision, because we had all these other sub-brands. We had Synx Lace, we had Synx Plus, which was compression sleeves, and we had Synx Jelly, which is all our gel products. And so we wanted to be about moving and keeping the body well and healthy. So getting to that point, I'd say, has probably been the hardest point of my whole business journey.
And did you use a brand expert to help you change?
I did. Yep, I've used a couple. But the interesting thing, when we went through the original packaging changes in 2017, I used someone in Spain who was amazing. But then I ended up finding a local business, Greenhouse Studios, and they're actually right around the door from my clinic, which is incredible when you think of all the people we've worked with around the world. And these girls have just nailed everything. Like, they've been amazing to work with and have really help bring this dream to life. So we've been working on this project probably 7 months. And we finally now are just getting all the new packaging. So over the next 12 months, all the new packaging and branding will be in store. Yeah,
great. Good to hear. What have you enjoyed least about managing fast growth?
Oh, that would have to be inventory. I must say, getting that right is crazy, especially when you're dealing with huge buyers. You've either got too much stock sitting in a warehouse or you're air freighting stuff over. So that whole management process has probably been the hardest. I'd say we just got to where we knew we kind of figured it out. And then COVID happened. So then, you end up with too much stock. And in between the COVID times, I'll just mention this too, we pivoted a bit and we launched a whole new range of products. We actually did sanitizers. I'll just show you these here. But what we actually did, we wanted something that was really cool and funny. So this is actually called Pure Sanity Co. And we worked with our designers on this as well. And they've all got funny sayings on it. So it's spray it like you mean it. Spray that again.
I like that.
An apple-scented spray keeps the doctor away. Every spray is a good spray. Everything has stuff written on it. We've got wipes, sprays, gels, and masks. We just sort of wanted to take this opportunity. And what was frustrating me at the time was there were sanitizers on the market and masks, and they were way too expensive. And I was like, this is just ripping people off. We knew we could do it better. So we pulled all this together in 8 weeks and got it
and add a bit of fun to it as well.
And we some pharmacies. Yeah, it's so fun. And for people on the go, like you should see the wipes. It's like they're called Wipe the Day Away. You know, it's all about, clean and be clean.
So where do you sell those now?
In pharmacies. It's been challenging getting the branding out there, because that's another challenge. Facebook, Google, and everything control sanitizing advertising at the moment.
Yes.
So if you weren't doing it before COVID, you're not allowed to advertise. So we have struggled getting the message out there. And on saying that, we had, Priceline, Chemist Warehouse already and wanting it, but because these things take time, right? So by the time our products came in, the market had been saturated. So it's a big timing thing. Yeah. But we know this has got longevity because it's quite different to a lot of the other branding out there.
And you've deliberately kept it out of the SynxBody brand. It's a new separate brand. Yeah. Very, definitely. Very clever. Yeah. And what do you love most about growing a small business?
What do I love most? I love being able to create products that I want to bring to the market and help people with. So I love getting the emails and messages, this has changed my life. Oh my God, you've helped me so much. Like for me, like my whole journey and my career has been about helping people. Obviously being a podiatrist, wanting to help people with pain, reduce, increase their lifestyle, help them with their work shoes, football boots. So for me, like that's probably the most rewarding part of my business, is just, figuring things out. So sometimes I do focus groups and, my customers will come back and tell me different products they want, and we'll kind of work on that. Like even a new product we're just launching into Chemist Warehouse now, these big and little toe spreaders, like they're literally a little bit of gel that goes between the big and little toe to stop them rubbing on each other.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the same on the little toes, and this was all through a focus group that we sort of developed and figured out this is what people wanted, and we brought that product to market. So that for me is the most rewarding part of my business.
Yeah, good. What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Mindset shift. So that's back to 2017. Back to that key year. What happened that year was I did not have a business coach. So I'd never had a business coach. I didn't think I even needed one. I didn't even think I knew what one did back then. And so since then, I've been working with her. And she used to be the CEO of Challenger TAFE over here in WA. So she's actually had a huge range of different experiences, and she's been great for me. Really encouraged me. She helped me through that whole transition period. She's helped me with my goal setting, with making sure I'm on track with my sleep, getting my patterns better, and also working, making sure I've got that time and holding me accountable. And for me, that was a huge shift. Yeah. So it's definitely back to that. And I'll talk a little bit about a book recently that I read. Did you ever read Miracle Morning?
No, but I've heard of it.
By Hal Elrod. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a really good book for me that year, because it was all about like waking up at 5 a.m. And because I used to go to bed at 2, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this?
Go to bed earlier.
I was like, yeah, exactly. So it got me shifting out of that, working late at night, being way more productive in the morning. Yeah. And it was working fantastic for me that year.
Definitely over the years, I've changed my thinking around sleep. I used to think about 4 hours sleep a night, but 8 hours, it's so optimal. Yeah, you need sleep to be able to focus, have more energy. My daughter, my 7-year-old daughter's turned me into a morning person. My friends at university would not believe that, because I'd go to bed at 3 a.m, but even my business partners in the early days, but we'd be up till, after midnight working. But I just love my mornings, more energy, more focus, and it's a great part of the day.
Same. I totally agree. And my son's up early anyway, but what we used to encroach on that was he wanted to be a part of my morning. So I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do my miracle morning, which is all about time for yourself, right? It's about meditating and, reading something. So, he recommends in the book like an hour, but there was no way I could ever do an hour. So I just got half an hour, and that's what I did. Or even sometimes if I only had 10 minutes, as long as you focus on the 5 sort of things, and it's all about like, a bit of exercise, a bit of meditation, a bit of thinking about your day, and a few minutes of reading. So I used to have a book there, and because I used to think I had no time to read those books anymore, now I've got like tons of books. You can see them behind me, and I've got heaps of different business books, and I love reading. And I just go, you know what? No, this is part of my job. Like I have to do this, even if it's 3 pages a day. I'm going to make time for it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that leads us on to what is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Yeah, a good morning routine. That's my favorite. And it's so true, because I know myself, like we're not all perfect, right? Yeah. So if things start, crumbling around me, I look at my day and I go, hang on a minute, what's changed? I've been too busy to focus on my morning routine, right? Get back to that morning routine.
Yeah, absolutely. You make it a rock. I don't know if you've heard that analogy of Stephen Covey talking about the fish tank, but you put that into your tank first. Those big important things, the healthy, your health, your mindset, etc. Work on those first, and everything else will get done around it.
100%. And I notice it myself, like, it's like always getting up, I used to have a coffee straight away. No, now I'm always a glass of water and, green juice or whatever it is I'm doing. And then getting into my routine, exercising, doing I have a gratitude journal. I write 3 things I'm grateful for.
It's great.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And I even journal like different things as well. Like when I'm in different parts of the world, I'll journal all parts of those processes too.
I read a Harvard article something a while ago that if you've got a shitty mindset or attitude and you're in a dark place, then something as simple as writing 3 things that you're grateful for each day in your journal, or just write 3 things down every day for at least 3 weeks, 21 days, it can really change the wiring in your brain and make you have a more positive mindset. Yeah, interesting.
100% agree with that.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. growsmallbusiness.com. Can you talk about how you added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Yeah, so I guess that's a bit of a learning curve. I've obviously hired people before that, haven't worked out. And some of the biggest probably mistakes that I've made is signing contracts. So signing contracts with people. So we have a bit of a philosophy now that anyone new that we work with, we don't sign contracts. Like we work, you show me how you work, I show you how we work. We make sure we gel. Because that has definitely been a huge point. As far as hiring, I've been really lucky that I've always sort of focused on like-minded people. So with my team around me just now, we gel really well. We have a really good work culture. And I guess the way that I am as a leader, I like to, bring the best out of people. So look for their strengths, their weaknesses, teach them all that I can, so that, and it's a constantly an evolving process too. So they're teaching me things. I love hearing ideas, opinions. I'm very open with that kind of thing. And I think that's so important in business because you just don't want your employees to feel scared to say something to you or afraid to think outside the box, because I encourage all that.
Yep, totally.
I'd say that's probably the worst.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what's some of the things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to invest in your employees. So to teach them, like I was saying before, like teaching them, I'm not afraid to show them all the things that I can do. I think it's great. The more people you have that know what you can do, the easier your job is. If you need a day off, if you need a holiday, like that there's going to be less stress over your head. So I love like educating people, but as I said before about the strengths and weaknesses, I think it's really important to play to those with both of them. So even with my 2, I've got like an executive assistant and I've got a sales manager, and they're both amazing people and they both have their strengths. So I just make sure that each of them is getting the needs that they both need. And then also I think it's really important that as a team, we have a lot of social time too, and build our own relationship. I think that's so important. So we actually love each other's energy. We love spending time together. And even as, we've discussed this whenever we bring different people into our group. So we actually have state distributors as well. So they're part of our wider team.
Yep.
And even with them, I like to meet them and sort of explain how we operate and how we are as a group. And we often, when we're meeting, say with our, graphic design team, we all go together because we work remotely.
Yep.
So there is also that, risk of not being as involved working remotely. So we try and make sure when we go meet our graphics design team, we all go.
Yeah.
And when we do different things, we all do it together and then have our fun time as well.
That's good. That's great. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
That's an interesting one because I think, I don't know about you in this, but I think I'm constantly working on that. I get to a stage where I'm like, yep, I'm feeling good. And then there'll always be times where I'm out of whack. But what I try and do is think about quality time. So even with my 2 kids, I'm constantly making sure, have I spent enough time with each of them? And when I'm working, this is my work hours, this is my work time. And then once I'm removed from work, I try and switch off so that I can be present in whatever it is I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Otherwise you start to feel frustration build. It's like if you're working in an environment when the kids are around and you're stressed and they're not getting the attention they need, it's not great.
It's called COVID homeschooling.
Yeah, so we don't have to do that.
No,
Where are
we
you?
we did it for 3 weeks. It was the most
Yeah.
excruciatingly painful fucking thing I've ever done. Doing 2 jobs
I agree.
poorly. I loved the time with it, but it's
Yeah.
just, it was.
It's challenging, isn't it? And hats off to the teachers, I tell you, because
Yes.
you know, when you're sitting there trying to do ABCs with them and you're thinking, jeepers, I've got all these most important things that are going to, you know, if I don't do this, something's actually going to fall apart. It's a real hard place to be.
Yeah.
So hats off. But yeah, balance, I think, is so tricky. I just try my best to do it. So as long as I fill up my own cup first, make sure I've got time with my friends, make sure I've got time exercising and eating well and the family's eating well, then I think I'm halfway there.
Yeah. No, it's exactly what you were describing. I always had trouble early on, probably got a handle on it when my daughter came along, but still have to work on it all the time of switching off, not working all the time. I'm much better at it these years. I put some things in place. But yeah, well, what about a hobby? Do you have a hobby?
No, I wouldn't say I have a hobby. Let me try and think about that. I love exercise. So exercise and cook. I do love cooking. So that is a bit of a hobby for me.
Me too.
My daughter's celiac. So I went through a bit of a process probably about 5 years ago when she was diagnosed of getting a Thermomix and learning to make everything from scratch. So I do love cooking.
Oh, that's a hobby. Yeah. How much professional development did you invest in yourself? Books, podcasts, courses, training, conferences, events? 2017
was a lot. I would say pretty much a lot of that year was self-investment. And then leaning back from that, like it's just part of my everyday process now. So I still do, I'm part of Business Chicks. I do a lot of their events. If there's ever a business podcast, I'll jump on and listen. I've just learned to better structure my time now. So if I'm cooking in the kitchen, I'll wear my AirPods and listen to a podcast rather than radio. Do you love that? It's so much easier, isn't it? Gets their mind stimulated and going. And sometimes you don't always have time to just read a book. So just listening in the car, finding ways to fill my head full of good positivity when I can. That's what I try and do. Yeah,
great. Anything else on mentors or coaches?
Yeah, so I was saying I've got my business coach. So I see her usually once a month, and then we just, recap on it. Sometimes that pushes out to every 2 months, just depending on what we're doing. I also have Andrew, so he's still around. Whatever I need, I can call him, email him, what do you think about this? He's very involved still in what's going on. He gives me really good advice. And then I have the other director of the company, which is the other investor, Glenn. He's also great as well. So he's a really good soundboard for me because he's really into that retail pharmacy space. And I think it's so important to have mentors. I agree. Important. I just learn something from them all the time. And Andrew's assistant, he's had the same assistant for like 30 years. Trisha, she's amazing. And she's been fantastic for me too. So anytime I ring her about something or email her, she's great. She gives really good advice. And I just think it's really important to listen.
And it's good also, I think it's a part that often people miss with a mentor or coach is it's not always correcting your thinking on something or making you think differently. Sometimes it is just reinforcing, that sounds good to me. You're heading in the right path. So it's good to have someone else to give you that confidence too.
Yeah, definitely.
Board of directors at the moment. Do you have a board?
So essentially, unofficially, I guess I do. So I'm obviously the CEO and director. We have the other director and investor and obviously Andrew's team. So we meet when we're discussing anything important or if anything comes up, they always, let me run with my ideas. I'm running the business essentially, but I have them as a sounding board.
All right, we're on to our final 5 questions. Rachel, let's. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
So the hardest thing I find is resilience. It's knowing that you've just got to keep pushing through those hard times. Look, it might have just been the majority, but I feel like in business, you're not going to make money for a good amount of years. So as long as you're prepared to find income another way or not expect to have it overnight, you have to be in it for the long haul. That's probably the hardest part.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Okay, can I give you 3?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I loved Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Have you read that?
Yeah, a couple of times actually. It's an excellent book.
It's a great book because it's so old and yet it's so relevant. It's like 1937 or something.
It was,
It was written, so old, but it's such a good book and that really helped me through 2017. So 2017 was that and The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I love that book and I love his story. He's got a really inspiring story behind him. And then one of my other biggest idols is Emma Isaacs from Business Chicks.
Oh, cool. Yep.
Have you heard of Emma? Yeah.
No.
So, no, not heard of her. She's amazing. She released a book in Australia called Winging It. And honestly, highly recommend. It's such a fantastic read, even for men. I mean, it's mainly aimed at women, but it's got so many different elements that are relevant to both. And she's also just launched it in America just like 2 days ago or something. So it's a fantastic book. So they're probably...
I'm just putting that on my list right now, actually.
Yeah. It's really, really good. And even good, like, of fathers with daughters. I think you're saying you got a daughter. Yeah. It's good. Like, to inspire her and encourage her as she grows to be whatever she wants to be. It's great.
Great. I'll be adding that to my Audible list next. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Yes. Now, what do? I love Alan Kohler's business show. So whenever I used to fly, I used to listen to that all the time.
Yeah, he's great.
Obviously, I haven't been flying for a while. He's great, isn't he?
Yeah.
Love listening to him. Obviously, Mark Boris, the mentor. Love listening to him.
Yeah, I've just started listening to his cast. It's excellent.
Yeah, it's really good. Seth Godin.
Yeah.
Have you listened to him? He's amazing, isn't he?
Yes.
Really inspiring. And then I love the people that he interviews as well. Like, they're really interesting.
Yep.
So I've learned a lot from that. Who else? I listen to lots of different ones. Like, I also listen to health and wellness ones to keep me like focused on my health and wellness as well. So that's good.
Great. One tool you'd recommend to help growing a small business?
One tool. Okay. So, there's so many, but I love Xero for managing my accounting. Like, I found that itself like really streamlined things for us. But we use that with something called Unleashed. Do you know Unleashed?
Yeah, well, I implemented that when I was CEO at Lark Distillery here in Tasmania. Yeah, it's a great inventory system.
Isn't it? Isn't it great? So that's changed our life as well, because prior to that, it was a bit of a mess. And as you would know, like, getting inventory right is probably one of the hardest things, especially when you're dealing with multiple warehouses in different countries and currencies and everything. It's quite confusing. So I love Unleashed and Shopify. I'd say probably those ones together for us have been the biggest tool to propel us forward.
Do you know the guys, or Ben de Jong at The Cut in Perth? They're a Shopify consultant. I've had Ben on at the cast earlier in the year. I'll send that through to you as well. Yeah, you might
send it through, because we're always looking for people to help us with Shopify. So that's great.
Great. I'll send that through to you as well. Peter will clean this up while I'm mumbling and typing. Sorry, there's something else. So that's what I was going to ask before. So you warehouse yourselves. You don't use a 3PL, a third-party logistics
provider? We do out of Sydney. Yeah. So this is our second 3PL that we've used now.
Right. Yep. Got it. Have you looked at Amazon?
Yeah, so we did Amazon in the US and quite successfully for a while, but then we had a changeover in people, and it's been really hard to get the momentum back up to where it was so rapidly. So we've actually just started shipping ourselves out of the US now, even though we still have Amazon on the side, but we're hoping that will take off and take over. But we've just also been approached and started working directly with Amazon in Australia too now. So it's early days, but that's another avenue for us.
Yeah, FBA, Fulfilled by Amazon, only launched a year or so ago in Australia. So it'll be interesting to see how they go.
Yeah, definitely.
Final, my favourite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I would say to myself to buckle up and prepare for the ride of your life. It's going to be tricky, super hard, and just be resilient, because there's no way that I thought that it would take 7 to 8 years for me to really see success. Like, if I'd thought that back then, I would have said, oh my goodness, like, I can't do that. So I think just knowing that, keep going, all your failures will actually, shape who you are.
Yeah. Just on the length of time to get to success or get over, the financial hump. So you are not staring at the bank balance every day and doing cash flow. Have you heard of the rule?
Working so hard.
Yeah. Have you heard of the rule of 4x2?
No.
I heard this in London, but a VC was speaking about when he gets hit up for money by investors, and he tells them the rule of 4x2, which is it's going to take 4 times as long and cost twice as much, or take twice as long and cost 4 times as much. The difference is you get to choose.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well, I think it's true, because a lot of people have this the wrong impression of growing starting a small business, then growing it. It does take a lot longer and a lot more money than most people think early on.
100%. Like, I don't know. I mean, if obviously knowing what I know now, I would 100% do it, but it is a process, and if you're not strong enough minded and you're not in it 100%, that's what I always say to people when they tell me their business ideas. I'm like, do you love it? Like, you have to really love this idea, because it is the only thing that's going to see you through the dark times.
Yes, I agree.
Your passion.
You've got to have that passion. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time today, Rachel.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, Troy.
That was great. Learned a lot, and I think the audience will get a shitload of value out of it.
Yeah.
And it's really good hearing your journey. Congratulations on your success to date. And
thanks so much, Troy.
Yeah, great.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.